Hello SLAPAFISH community, welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. So in this video I'm going to be driving the Object 477A. Now I'm actually going to have two replays for you. So one game is going to focus more on the armor and the second game is going to focus more on the gun. This match that we're having on Siegfried Lane, it's going to be facing with the armor. We're going to go straight down the zero line and a lot of people's going to be shooting me, and you're going to see how the armor of this tank works. Because the tank has two things going for it. It's got the big gun that has 900 millimeters of penetration. That does like 760 damage. And then also you have it has the secondary weapon. Also the main gun actually has high explosives. And the secondary weapon, if you have not realized, the secondary weapon is the exact same gun that's on the BMP2. Now, if you ever wondered what the BMP2 gun would do in Era 3, well, now you know. Because it's on this tank, and it does pretty dang good. And yes, it fires from the gun on top of this tank, which I thought was a really nice touch. So, let's talk about the armor. The armor, well, also the survivability of this tank. 3,750 hit points, and there's a very similar tank to this tank, the MPT-70. Anyway, the armor is extremely good on this tank. Even with your 900 millimeters of penetration, which is I believe is the highest penetration non-ATGMs in the game, will even struggle. Your 900 millimeters of penetration will struggle with the frontal armor of this tank. Also, the turret, you cannot damage the turret. The turret does not cause damage to you. Like, if they shoot you in your turret, you do not take damage because it is unmanned. So it's just like an exterior module. So keep that in mind when you're fighting one of these tanks. But you can hit the turret ring, which is a very small weak point. And it does work. And it will pin. If you're face hugging this tank, I have discovered if you do face hug this tank and using your 6.3 of gun depression when you're face hugging this tank, getting your gun to go all the way down on the frontal armor of this tank, while with your 900 millimeters of penetration, it will go through. But most of the time, when you're just fighting at distance and you're not using gun depression on the tank, it's not going to go through the front unless you're hitting the turret ring. And yeah, the lower plate is super angled, but also pretty weak. The lower plate has actually like 3 different situations here. It has several different layers. It has a 60 millimeter plate, but it's extremely angled. Then you gotta go through a 130 millimeter plate at another extreme angle. Then there's also a 50 millimeter plate at another extreme angle, which you gotta go through a lot more armor to get through. But if the tank is raising, let's say if the 774 is coming over a ridgeline, the 477 is coming over a ridgeline, and you get shot in the lower plate, it will get pinned. Because you're exposing your lower plate. Also, look at this BMP2 gun going, and it does really great. And yeah, the armor of this tank has been working really good. The gun has also been working magically. I'm racking up damage with both guns, and I've been using both guns to the best of my ability. And I'm about to run out of shells for the main gun, for the secondary gun. The armor is just incredible in the front. Frontally armored, this tank is incredible. Now, the sides in the back of this tank, easily pinnable. Think of a Leopard 2A5. Sides in the weak of that tank are very, very weak. And you can pretty much go through it all the time. The side does have some armor. It does have these plates on the side that create like space armor. So sometimes your shells will get absorbed, especially if you're firing heat rounds or ATGMs. But the back of the tank does not have space armor or rounds armor that will absorb AT gems or heat or high explosive. Also, if you're using this tank, firing the high explosive, you're doing like 500 damage when you're hitting this tank and from the front. So yeah. Yeah, so that's the armor. Armor's super strong at the front. Turret is not a weak point because you can't damage the turret. The sides and the back are pretty weak. And you have 6 degrees of conversion, 3,750 damage, 3,750 hit points, and yeah. So I touched bases on the gun before. About this gun before. So the gun, 760 damage, 900 millimeters of penetration. And if you load your high explosive, 980 damage with 180 millimeters of penetration. I mean, yeah. What else? The accuracy actually is pretty sucky on this tank. The aim time is 2.7, the accuracy is 0.35, and your movement accuracy will be quite bad on the move. So yeah. So that's why I kind of had things equipped on this tank. So I need to tell you what I have all equipped on this tank. How do I have the Odget 477A loaded out? I have the advanced loader, advanced gun link drive because it cannot get a stabilizer, the enhanced target info, and the powertrain. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the mobility in a second. So my cruise skills are Born Leader, Supply Conservation, Rapid Loading, Off-Road Driving, Steady Aim, Deadeye, Sixth Sense, Armor Angling, and Run and Gun. So yeah, that's what I'm running. Basically like a survivability loadout for TDs. Armor Angling to reduce damage coming in. Rate of Fire to improve my rate of fire, obviously, to get that DPM up. I got several different accuracy stuff on this tank to help, because the accuracy on this tank does not really like to be accurate. Even when you're fully aimed in, sitting still, you can still miss mid to long ranges. Sometimes even short ranges will even miss. Like, look how big that bloom is. I know I was on the move in full speed, but that just shows you, like, this is Cold War. This is Era 3, where most bloom circles are pretty tiny, even on the move, which this tank does not have. Also, if you notice on the minimap, the left side of the map, whatever that thing is called, I don't know what that thing is called. If you notice, anytime during this replay, you can only traverse your gun so far left, so far right. I think it's 70 degrees left, 70 degrees right. So, yeah. That goes back for the armor, so keep in mind that when people are starting to flank you and stuff like that. And this is me fighting at 477 and realizing you cannot actually pin the turret because there is no way to pin it because it's not pinnable. You can't do damage there. And I figured that out. And I also asked developers, and they're like, yep, you cannot pin the turret because it acts like an exterior module, which is interesting. Very interesting to know. What else? No. So, this tank also does still not have... So, this tank has the highest penetration of any tank that does not have 80 gems. But this tank also, if you're talking non-80 gem tanks, non-80 gems, it is the second highest damage per shot in the game. The highest is the MBT-70. Now, the MBT-70 reloads quite faster. The base reload for this tank is 12.6 seconds. The base reload for the MBT-70 is 10.5 seconds. MBT-70 is doing 780, and this tank is doing 760, but the accuracy on the MBT-70 is way better at 0.3 instead of 0.35, and does not have those comparable traversing accuracy penalty. Also, the MBT-70 gets 9 degrees of calibration, where this tank gets 6. But MBT-70 also has half of the penetration this tank has, at 400 and 444. 440. This tank gets 900. So yeah, overall, the armor's really good. The gun's fantastic. The gun's pretty accurate. The mobility is okay. I mean, it's got a good top speed, good horsepower per ton, but so burst speeds are terrible. If you notice, I have off-road driving on this tank, and that's like one of the few tanks in Cold War I have off-road driving because the terrain resistance are pretty bad. So yeah, overall, I like the tank. It's very fun. As you can see, I've rated 10,000 and 13,000 damage in this tank so far. It's a good tank, especially when you use it correctly. And yeah, that's it for this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, remember to SLAPAFISH because one was not. And peace out. See ya.